Let's continue our journey into the classic TV series The Originals. In the previous episode, the witches kidnapped Haley, who was pregnant with the Michelson family's heir, forcing the original brothers to help them fight Marcel. However, Klaus showed little concern for Haley and the child. Meanwhile, Elijah fell into the hands of a powerful witch, and rescuing him has become an urgent matter. A seminary student suddenly went mad, killing 5 people before raising a scythe and taking his own life. Rebecca was originally trying to find Elijah's whereabouts but unexpectedly learned about the horrific massacre that had taken place at St. Anne's Church. Little did she know, the deranged seminary student had actually been cursed by a witch. Meanwhile, Haley, who is pregnant, is currently under the witch's so-called protection, which is far from well-intentioned. A wild wolf with golden eyes appears in the shadows, staring directly at Haley. It appears to be Haley's kind, but the arrival of the witch Sabine scares the wolf away. She claims that without magic or an ultrasound, she can determine the gender of Haley's baby. Intrigued, Haley lies on the table, allowing Sabine to divine the child's gender. Sabine quickly reaches a conclusion: Haley is carrying a healthy baby girl. Trusting the witch, Haley lets down her guard and even allows Agnes to arrange a prenatal doctor for her. Unbeknownst to her, she is slowly walking into the witch's trap. Rebecca finds the coffin containing Elijah in the attic of St. Anne's Church, but she is unable to enter the room and is instead pulled into Elijah's consciousness. It turns out that ever since Davina first removed the dagger, the magic sealing the original has been gradually weakening. This is because the silver dagger must be wielded by an original vampire to retain its power. However, Elijah has no intention of leaving the attic because he's discovered that there is a conflict between Davina and Marcel. Rather than being Marcel's secret weapon, it's more accurate to say that Davina is voluntarily being held captive by him. She even needs Marcel's approval to attend tonight's music festival. Marcel doesn't want to risk the witches discovering Davina's whereabouts, but Davina threatens Marcel, saying she could ignite his blood vessels in an instant. Elijah instructs his sister to take good care of Haley while he tries to recruit Davina to the side of the original siblings. Rebecca agrees to her brother's request, but she is unaware that Haley is already in trouble. Dr. Page, the doctor in charge of Haley's prenatal checkup, takes a long, deliberate look at the crescent moon birthmark on her shoulder, then excuses herself to get some blood pressure medication before leaving the room. Haley receives a text from Rebecca and instinctively sends her location, but she quickly senses something is wrong. The witches seem to be plotting something. Car lights soon flash outside, and several men enter the room. Page approached with a syringe in hand, but Haley acted on instinct, striking first and knocking Page to the ground. She then rushes to lock the door and open the window to make her escape. Haley runs alone through the forest, shrouded in the darkness of night, with armed enemies hot on her trail. Relying on her natural werewolf abilities and Rebecca's timely assistance, she successfully takes down one wave of attackers, but more enemies close in. Rebecca is the first to be struck by an arrow in the abdomen, and Haley is hit soon after. They both fall unconscious. With just an emotionless stare, Davina can make the blood of the person standing before her, Marcel, boil, causing sweat to bead on his forehead. This is Davina at the height of her powers, but she's only doing this to secure her chance to attend tonight's music festival. Marcel proposes a compromise, suggesting that Camille accompany Davina. The two girls wander through the cheerful crowd. Marcel, meanwhile, instructs his vampires to guard them discreetly. He cannot allow the witches to discover Davina, but Davina isn't just looking for a breath of fresh air. She's also hoping to take this opportunity to see the one she loves. An ordinary violinist, Klaus finds Tim and compels him to go to St. Anne's Church alone, while secretly instructing Camille to shake off the vampire guards and take Davina to the meeting. Under Klaus's arrangements, the young couple finally meets at St. Anne's Church. Davina simply wants to apologize to Tim for her sudden disappearance from school. As they talk, Klaus learns that the seminary student who went on a killing spree and murdered 5 of his classmates was actually Camille's twin brother.
We all must stand alone against our demons.
After consoling Camille, Klaus politely takes his leave. He then rudely interrupts the young couple's conversation and compels Tim to count from 1 to 100,000. Klaus bluntly reveals a harsh truth. Marcel may be protecting Davina's safety, but he's also controlling her for his own use. The longer Davina stays in the attic, the more of her life she loses. And as for her relationship with Tim, it's nothing but a fantasy. Davina refuses to accept Klaus's offer and casts a spell to make his blood boil, but Klaus moves swiftly, grabbing Tim and using his life as leverage. In response, Davina snaps Tim's leg from afar with a wave of her hand. Klaus does not back down and continues to demand Davina's loyalty. Davina's fury reaches its peak, and with a powerful burst of energy, all the surrounding glass shatters into pieces. Rebecca awakens from unconsciousness to find herself surrounded by corpses, but there's no sign of Haley. Panicked, she calls her brother. Upon learning of Haley's disappearance, Klaus stops playing games. He grabs Tim and, without a word, hurls him from the second floor. Davina rushes to her lover's side, but it's too late. Tim is already on the brink of death. Klaus approaches Davina and offers to save her beloved, but his terms are simple. All he needs is for Davina to ask him herself.
Please.
For you, Davina. With pleasure.
Klaus bites his wrist to save Tim's life and compels him to forget everything that happened tonight. He points out that Davina now owes him a favor. Davina, clutching Tim's violin, vents all her anger on a bewildered Marcel. Klaus rushes to his sister's side, but Rebecca still hasn't found Haley. However, distant howls of wolves catch Rebecca's attention. The siblings hurry outside, only to see Haley, covered in blood and utterly exhausted, walking back toward them. The wounds on Haley's body had already completely healed. Rebecca realized that it was the unborn child who had healed Haley. When asked who helped her take down the enemies, Haley believed it was the wild wolf that appeared tonight. At that moment, she had no idea that the wolf was actually her future husband. Klaus accused Sophie of breaking their agreement, but she claimed to know nothing about the attack on Haley. Under Klaus's questioning, Sophie revealed the secret about Davina. Every 300 years, the witches of New Orleans organize a harvest festival. They choose the 4 most gifted young witches from the younger generation and sacrifice them to the ancestors, who, in return, grant them even greater power. Davina and Sophie's niece were among those chosen, but they knew nothing about the sacrificial process until they were led to the altar. The elders had told them that only a drop of blood needed to be drawn from their palms, but it wasn't until the first girl's throat was mercilessly slit by the elders that the girls understood the full truth about the harvest festival. Sophie tried desperately to stop the harvest and sought help from the priest. The priest also refused to risk the lives of 4 young girls, but the witch elders had gone mad with power. They cursed the priest's nephew to distract him, giving the witches time to prepare the sacrifice. The cursed seminary students savagely massacred the church, and the witch elders, indifferent to the girls' pleas, ruthlessly sacrificed 3 young lives. In that critical moment, Marcel led the vampires to the sacrificial site, slaughtering the witch elders and saving Davina's life. The magical power meant for the other 3 girls slowly converged within Davina alone, making her Marcel's secret weapon. Davina was hidden in the attic, avoiding the witches' pursuit while seeking revenge against their cruelty. As Sophie recounted this story, Elijah, hidden in the attic, had already regained consciousness. Despite his deathly pallor and overwhelming thirst for blood, he resisted the urge to feed on the young girl before him. This noble act earned Davina's trust. She pricked her finger with a needle and passed the bloody tip to Elijah's mouth. Just a single drop of blood revived Elijah's vitality. Unlike Klaus's coercion, Elijah's offer was hard to refuse. He promised to deal with Klaus and Marcel, assuring Davina she wouldn't have to be anyone's puppet. Davina then revealed the entire story of the harvest festival to Elijah. The elders claimed the girls would return to the world alongside the magic granted by the ancestors, but because the harvest festival took place so long ago, people can no longer tell if it's merely a legend or if it actually happened. The witches believe that Davina must die to fully complete the harvest, but Davina refused to forgive their deception. Elijah pointed out that the power of the 4 harvest witches had been concentrated within her, and her body would struggle to bear such immense strength. He promised to give Davina his mother's grimoire, so she could learn to control the magic within her. Davina was tempted, and they struck a deal, but Marcel realized the attic was no longer a safe hiding place. He approached Davina and told her he would take her somewhere new. Davina didn't refuse, but as she stepped out of the attic, she suddenly felt unwell, her body trembling, the surroundings shaking. She collapsed into Marcel's arms. Marcel had no choice but to carry Davina back to the attic, but all of this was just a ruse by Davina to achieve her alliance with Elijah. She couldn't leave with Marcel. Klaus humbly begs for forgiveness, because he betrayed his own brother and handed him over as a gift to the enemy. But Klaus's rough approach to reconciliation clearly didn't satisfy Elijah, though it was evident Elijah wasn't truly angry with his younger brother. With Davina's secret now out, the alliance between the original brothers and the witch Sophie fell apart. Sophie's only concern was saving her niece. who had participated in the harvest. Sophie might directly threaten Haley's safety, so they needed to sever the link between her and Haley as soon as possible. Elijah tore a page from his mother's grimoire, then took a knotted string to Davina, claiming that untying the knot would test her true abilities, allowing her to freely choose the magic she wanted to learn next time. In reality, he was using Davina's power to break the link between Sophie and Haley. Meanwhile, the witches quickly made their move. Agnes kidnapped Sophie, vowing to kill Klaus's child. They would not tolerate the existence of such an unnatural being. Agnes pulled out a large syringe and plunged it into Sophie's neck. At that moment, Haley felt a sharp pain in her own neck. Without delay, Klaus and Elijah quickly found Sophie, only to learn that the potion injected into her would cause her body temperature to rise. By no later than this evening, Haley would miscarry due to the high fever. Agnes had gone into hiding. To track her down, the originals would need to use every resource at their disposal to quickly track down Agnes. Klaus approached Father Kieran and revealed that it was Agnes who cursed his nephew, leading him to commit the massacre at the church. Sophie wasn't idle either. She prepared an herbal remedy, hoping to ease Haley's suffering before sunset. With Elijah's help, Haley drank the potion Sophie had made, then used the cold water of a pool to soothe her burning body. Father Kieran came through. Locating Agnes, Klaus produced the syringe she had used for the potion and demanded that Agnes hand over the antidote. But Agnes insisted that once black magic was set in motion, it couldn't be stopped. His child was doomed. Night had fallen, and Haley's discomfort was intensifying. But Davina had already found a way to untie the knot. She held the knotted string in her hands. Chanting softly, the string floated obediently into the air and slowly unraveled. As the knot unraveled, Haley's discomfort suddenly vanished. Sophie pierced her own palm, and Elijah immediately checked Haley's hand in concern. Seeing no wound appear, they both breathed a sigh of relief. Elijah stepped out of the water, but Sophie pleaded with him to convince Klaus to spare Agnes, as she was the only remaining elder among the witches. In gratitude for Sophie's help with Haley, Elijah decided to grant her one final request.
I won't let my brother kill Agnes.
Elijah called Klaus, signaling him not to do anything rash before he arrived. The usually composed and elegant Elijah, when he decides to get serious, can be so mesmerizing that even Klaus finds himself instantly captivated. He promised Sophie that he wouldn't let Klaus harm Agnes. Though Klaus was a bit disappointed, he obediently released his grip on Agnes's neck. But to everyone's surprise, Elijah suddenly turned on them, swiftly taking out several of the henchmen nearby. Ignoring Agnes's shocked expression, he seized her by the throat and, with a clean and efficient motion, snapped her neck. Klaus immediately transformed into a fanboy, looking at his brother with admiration. After confirming that Haley and Elijah were safe, Rebecca decided to leave the city. She sought out Marcel to say goodbye, but as their eyes met, something sparked between them, and the feelings they had suppressed for so long finally erupted. After their passionate encounter, they cuddled together on the balcony, letting the night breeze wash over them. Rebecca pulled out a red apple, which unexpectedly reminded Marcel of something. He still hadn't been able to find Klaus's true residence. After Rebecca left, he immediately went to visit the plantation, where Haley was the one who answered the door. It was their first meeting. Klaus soon found Marcel, who smugly declared that he had discovered Klaus's real home. Rebecca quickly received a call from Elijah, who informed her that Haley had gone missing. Klaus rushed home.
Marcel was here.
But Marcel's night was just getting started. He's organizing a vampire audition, and the winner will receive a daylight ring to become one of his own. As the crowd cheered for the victor, Klaus suddenly appeared and snapped her neck. The original brothers strolled in, demanding that Marcel hand over Haley. Marcel admitted that he had visited their home but claimed he had only exchanged pleasantries with Haley before leaving. The originals clearly didn't believe him. To clear his name, Marcel called in Sabine, offering to have the witch perform a locator spell. Haley woke up in the trunk of a bumpy car. She could just make out the silhouette of a stranger in the driver's seat. Desperately, she kicked at the car door, trying to free herself. The man pulled the car over, walked to the trunk, and opened it. Haley kicked out at him, but he caught her leg with ease. Tyler had his life torn apart by Klaus. His life was stripped away, his girlfriend stolen, and his mother killed. Yet, in the process, he became the only hybrid of werewolf and vampire in the entire supernatural world. Aside from Klaus himself, Tyler traveled countless miles from Mystic Falls to New Orleans, and his first act upon arrival was to abduct Haley. He had heard some ominous prophecies and was here to verify their truth. Just then, A strange man walked into the cabin, ignoring Haley's struggles. Tyler pulled out a syringe and forcibly plunged it into her abdomen, drawing a vial of her blood. Tyler then injected the blood into the man's neck and swiftly snapped his neck. Haley finally realized that Tyler was trying to create another hybrid. Tyler explained that werewolves and witches alike believed that Klaus's child had the power to create hybrids. He believed Klaus only wanted to use the child to build an army of hybrids, and Tyler was determined to prevent that from happening. As they talked, the man suddenly revived. Tyler slashed Haley's neck and ordered the werewolf to drink her blood. The werewolf lunged at Haley. The final step in the hybrid transformation was now complete. After drinking the blood, the man suddenly felt unwell. Stumbling, he rushed out the door. Haley seized the opportunity and grabbed a wooden stake. Their experiment had succeeded. The man had completed his transformation, his eyes now glowing gold. Guided by Sabine's locator spell, the original brothers arrived in the forest where Tyler was hiding. Elijah was anxious, desperate to find Haley as soon as possible, while Klaus mocked his brother, suggesting he was overly concerned about Haley's safety. Elijah couldn't argue with his brother's accusation, but Klaus suddenly caught a familiar scent. Following the trail, they found the truck Tyler had left behind. Klaus, like a bloodhound, grabbed Tyler's clothing and sniffed it intently. Given the harm he had previously inflicted on Tyler, Klaus was convinced that Tyler had come to New Orleans seeking revenge. Klaus wanted nothing more than to find Tyler and kill him, leaving Elijah alone to search for Haley. Seeing the experiment's success, Tyler's desire to kill surged. Ignoring Haley's pleas, he gripped a knife and slowly advanced. Haley struck first, driving the wooden stake into Tyler's abdomen. Tyler struggles to pull out the stake, but the newly converted hybrid walks into the room, and he recognizes Haley for who she is, forcefully demanding that Tyler not hurt her. The two men quickly began to grapple with each other. Haley seized the moment to untie the ropes and escape the hut. She ran through the jungle and luckily soon came across Elijah. Without hesitation, she threw herself into Elijah's arms and told him everything Tyler had done. Meanwhile, Klaus had finally tracked down Tyler. When enemies meet, their eyes burn with hatred, and a fierce battle was inevitable.